Greetings, Peter. How you doing? Welcome to Guy Talk. I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about your career and a couple new endeavors that you're doing and your books and so forth. Thanks for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
By the way, yeah, that's a very nice microphone. It sounds great on this end. Let me give our audience a little bit of bio on you. Peter, this came from Peter, by the way. Peter's a retired Special Forces non-commissioned officer. And that's the first thing in his line there, which tells you that's probably his priority. Peter works as a security consultant in the public and corporate sector. He is a highly technical, relies upon his engineering skills, which a lot of it came through his background in Special Forces.
That's right.
He's got 20 years operational leadership and planning experience, advising U.S. and foreign military and law enforcement in Asia, Africa, Middle East, and Europe. Personal recovery specialist for USAID. I must have kept you busy. A consultant for nuclear power generation. Performed physical security surveys, identified gaps, designed and oversaw construction of state-of-the-art physical and electronic security systems. He's also an author. He has 3 books out right now. Survival Mindset, it's a nonfiction. 1,000 Drops of Rain is fiction. And Drowning Creek, which is fiction. He's also the creator and proprietor of Info-Blurbs. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Pleasure to be here.
Oh, good. So let's start off with that military background. I think that's the prelude to everything that's building up, and maybe even a little bit about your prior military. In our previous conversations, you told me you're traveling as a child, and as you grew up, going back to where you came from, it didn't kind of like pan out the way you thought it was. So you had other options. So go ahead and let us know about that. That's a great story.
Well, in explaining my background, you will understand why the worst question you ask a person like me is, where are you from? And you remember that scene in Highlander. He's hanging out in a bar. He's having an introspective moment. He's, thinking about all the heads he's chopped off and all that. And the woman says, where are you from? And he says, lots of different places. And that's where I'm from. I was born in Australia. My family's Australian. I was raised in Southeast Asia. I grew up in Sumatra, Bangladesh, and Thailand. Spent most of my youth in Thailand. I was there during the war, the Indochina War. And I left Southeast Asia, came home to Australia in 79. And of course, I fit in there like a square peg in a round hole. It's really hard going to your town where you were born, and nobody believes that you're from there. And I'll give you an example. One day I was in a pub called the Bleak House right at the end of Victoria Avenue on Beaconsfield Parade, which is actually the street where I was born. Across from there is the South Melbourne Beach, and I've stood on that beach before and watched penguins swim by. So there are penguins where I'm from.
Wow.
And little ones. And
so you're not from Pittsburgh, right?
I'm not from Pittsburgh. I wish I was. It'd be so much simpler. So anyhow, this drungo at the pub saying, so where are you from? I said, well, I'm from here, actually. And he says, bullshit. I said, no, I am from here. He says, well, if you're from here, who's Chloe? I said, everybody knows who Chloe is. Chloe's a naked bird up there on the wall at the Young and Jackson Hotel across from Flinders Street Station. And he looks at me and says, oh, I'll be buggered. You are from here. I said, yeah, I am from here. But I was having a very difficult time connecting the dots. An opportunity came up for me to come to the States. My dad was working for an American engineering firm, and he could sponsor me in on a green card. And I said, I'll take it. Always one for, opportunities. Showed up in San Francisco, same problem. I sort of look and sound like I'm from here, but, when somebody says, oh, where are you from? If I tell them all the stuff I just told you, they think I'm from outer space, right? So after a while, it's like, I'm from San Francisco. Oh, really? I'm from San Francisco. What high school did you go to? Now I'm a liar, you know? You can't win. Okay.
Right.
I normally don't explain all that. Nowadays, I just say, I grew up overseas. I explained it for the audience to understand the background, which feeds into all the other stuff you mentioned, my books and my career.
So you're in the United States. You're now what, 18, 19, 20 years old?
22.
22. Okay, and you decide now that I got to find a job.
Well, I was doing pretty good. I was a draftsman. I'd done that in Australia, technical drawings. In the old days, engineers would dream up whatever it was, and the draftsman made it look like what it should be. They'd give you a rough sketch just on like a legal pad or something, and you draw it to scale and all that. And I'd started that in Aussie, did it for a couple of years, came over here. It didn't pay very much. And I was working for an engineering firm in the Bay Area. And they one day, I was in a big office. There was like 100 of us draftsmen in there. And one day, they took us to see a demonstration of something called AutoCAD, computer assisted drafting, which in those days was a huge whiteboard about 100 feet long with a big, XY axis that went over with, and it would draw the whole thing, right? And I don't know how they transcribed that into printed drawings, but I looked at that and I realized, okay, this is the kiss of death right here for my profession.
Yeah.
And they said, and for $8,000, you can learn how to do this. And I thought, well, number one, I don't have $8,000. Number two, I don't know how to get my hands on $8,000 because I didn't understand the whole system for education, for student loans. I had no concept. My education in Bangkok was very good, but it didn't prepare me in any way. I think they assumed that we all knew this stuff, and most of the American kids did. I couldn't figure out nothing. Anyway, so I figured, what do they need draftsmen for? The engineers will learn this stuff. We're done. And 2 years after, mate, a coyote just walked into your studio.
It's Chesty. He owns the place.
So in any case, 2 years later, that whole firm had 0 draftsmen. It's all engineers. In the meanwhile, what I did was, I took my dad's advice, the best piece of advice he ever gave me. He said, you should look at joining the military. They'll give you expert training and they'll pay you while you're doing it. And then probably the only piece of advice of his I ever followed. And so I joined the Army for the college money.
Yeah.
And of course,
I think I did too, actually.
Yeah. And I didn't go for being a draftsman or anything technical because I'd figured out I'll be sticking pins in a map of dying of boredom. I need something new. So they had this thing called infantry, airborne. And I went there. And when I got to Fort Benning, I'm looking around and I'm seeing the U.S. Army everywhere. And it's just like Bangkok was in the 70s, because we had GIs everywhere. It was ubiquitous. Right. Okay. And there's all these crazy people. And I fit right in. And I found
the home.
Yeah, this is where I've been looking for all these years, right? And so, I fit in. So I joined for the college money. I stayed for the adventure, and I stayed in because I was in the part of the Army where they put all the crazy people. So it's good,
Ta-da!
Yeah, and that's my story. And like I've reflected before, you meet all kinds of people in the Army. Those guys from hometown USA, mom and apple pie, you cut them, they bleed red, white, and blue. Okay. Right. You got the guys from the hood. You got lost souls and adventurers like me. You got all kinds. After you've been there for a while, we all become the same, and you cut us, we bleed. that camouflage color that comes out of BDU,
Yeah.
that's what we're like,
Yeah.
and a lot of red, white, and blue. I learned to love America. I learned how to become an American. And
Yeah.
as you can see, I've got an American flag right over there, and it's very important to me.
Yeah, I see that a lot of that patriotism too, which kind of baffles me about society today with this open disdain for America as great as it is. I kind of baffles me. But so tell me about being an advisor for the U.S. military and foreign militaries and law enforcement. Where did that come through your military training? Is that when you started to do the advisory work with SF?
Well, yeah, that was in an organization called the United States Army Special Forces, and we are military advisors. And
Right.
let's see, I've trained, of course, Thai soldiers, Filipino soldiers, Korean soldiers, the good kind of Korean. Well, I don't know if they're good. They're the South Korean. There's two kinds of Koreas: the good and the
The
bad. And on any given day of the week. No,
Republic of Korea.
that's an
The
inside joke. I don't want to disparage our Korean brothers. In any
so,
case.
so I mean, if you were
Um,
training foreign law enforcement, foreign military,
yeah.
you have to have language skills, correct?
Yes, that's right.
So what
Yeah,
do you
well, let's see
speak?
here. When I crossed the stage at the International School Bangkok, I spoke three languages: English, of course, Spanish, and Thai. I took 6 years of Spanish over my whole career. I don't speak it too well. I took 3 years of Latin. When I got to Africa, I became conversational in French in 6 weeks. I speak French better than I speak Spanish, and I
Wow.
got a little bit of Arabic.
So where in Africa did you go that you were speaking French?
Cote d'Ivoire, Mauritania, Senegal, Mali, Ghana, they speak English, of course. Um, Democratic Republic of the Congo. Those are the French-speaking countries I've been to. I've been to, like I said, Ghana, Nigeria, which speaks English, Ethiopia, which is a whole planet all to its own. I love that place. Been to South Africa, Kenya. Um, I mentioned Senegal, didn't I? They speak
Yeah.
French there, yeah.
Yeah,
I think,
actually,
yeah.
I've been to a couple of the same ones you've been. Ghana, right off the top, Congo, um, and a couple more. But it sounds like you've been all over the continent.
Yeah, always on business. You know that song by Toto? I miss the rains down in Africa.
Right.
I don't miss the rains.
I don't either. I don't either. I would go to the pinkies up parties when we get home, and they would you have the people with the pinkies up saying, "Africa, it's so beautiful." And I'm like, "Really? Have you been there?" And they went, "Well, no." Well, then, how do you know it's beautiful? Because
In the movies.
it's so beautiful. You need to go and make an informed decision before you start putting that stuff out.
Yeah, they had
It's
that film Out of Africa.
right.
Yeah, the key word, out of.
or,
Getting on the last plane out of.
or
Now,
the
I'll
first
tell you
one you
one thing,
catch.
you'll never die of boredom in Africa. That's for
No,
sure. There's
no.
always something new about every 5 minutes.
So when you were in Africa, was it with as a private contractor or was it as a U.S. military personnel?
Both.
Both.
Both. Yeah.
And how much time did you spend there?
If you added it all up, better part of 10 years, I'm sure.
Wow.
My first trip over there would have been 99. Um, my last trip over there was, I suppose, 2016, 2017. And I mean, a lot of time in country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started going over there in 2007,
Yeah.
and I think I finished like in 2012. And I was in Congo. Whenever Congo, flew into
Mm.
Kinshasa
Yeah.
about 3 weeks after that big shootout in '07. And we went in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
We went in there to figure out how to get diamonds out
Yeah. You were saying.
for a
Uh,
mining company. It wasn't anything to do with blood diamonds or anything. But as a matter of fact, when the guy contacted me about it, he asked me if I would bring a team over to figure it out for him, and I said, Africa diamonds. Saw the movie, really didn't dig it. and let me send you my business plan. It's a great business plan. And he was going to earmark like 3% of the profit right back directly to the people, which of course turns into your out of security.
Yeah.
So it was a good idea to do it, and it was a good project. Good project. So
Africa.
so when you were there, I mean, did you train their military? You trained their police department, their police agencies?
The law enforcement people overseas I was training was in Thailand, Border Patrol
Okay.
Police. In Africa, it was the military, of course, and
Um,
that became very interesting every single time.
yeah. You said you were up in Mali,
Oh yeah,
and was
yeah,
that with the U.S. government?
yeah. That was with 10th Special Forces Group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, during the GWAT,
Hmm.
third group, of course, got all sucked over to Afghanistan and then Iraq, and we had we ended up with pulling the Africa thing. It's like I had left third group, came over here to 10th group, thinking I'd be closer to the sand pile, ended up going back down to Africa, but it was part of the GWAT. We got the
Right.
GWAT Expeditionary Medal for it, for
Really?
going down to Mali, because we were chasing bad guys down there,
Right.
the Al Qaeda in the Maghreb.
Well, I got on the private side
Mm.
through Burkina Faso.
Yeah,
We were looking at a contract to do border security all along that border between Mali and Burkina Faso,
yeah,
and we came up with some cockamamie plan of putting dirt bikes on the back of an MI 8 or an I don't know if they got an 18 or a 17 over there or not. I don't know. They and then fly along the border in 3 spots where you see tracks going across that open border
yeah.
to drop down, take the dirt bikes off, and do some ground transportation there and try to pick up any other traffic that was going through there. If there was a problem, we're going to run to a pre-designated pickup point, drive the bikes right up on the back, and take off again. But
Mm.
that would have been a good contract. I didn't
Burkina
get.
Faso, I believe that's the country that used to be known as Upper Volta.
Oh, I don't know.
And you know how prehistoric it is over there, how really things are, I mean, the electricity was put in by Thomas Alva Edison. Um, a guy at the agency once described to me, this is before the GWAT, they were talking about Russia. He said, yeah, in the old Soviet days, you know how we used to describe that place? And what's that? Soviet Union.
Right.
We called it Upper Volta with nukes. That tells you a lot about, the state of the infrastructure
Right.
in the Soviet Union, and it hasn't changed much since.
Right.
Yeah, you
Right.
get
We're
out of the
finding
capital
out.
city, you get to the countryside, and it's like Africa. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've never been to Russia, but I have been to Africa, and very very primitive. You're
Yeah.
talking about the power and stuff. If the generators aren't working, you got problems.
Yeah.
We actually I was actually asked by a USAID guy in Kinshasa to
Mm.
check on a medical project they were doing down in Matadi, and I asked him, well, have you been down there to check on it? I mean, I'm here doing something else. I'm
Mm.
surprised you're asking me to do that, but when was the last time you were down there? He says, never. I went, you've never been down. You're sending that money down there, but you have no idea if it's been done or not. He said, no. Okay. So we did stop in to check on it. And one of the biggest problems, that we have as Americans is throwing money at stuff.
Yeah.
And you walk in, and this was in 2007. It was a vintage 1950s operating room, and they had drop ceilings. And in the drop ceilings, they had black mold because
Yeah.
they couldn't control the environment. And it was like nobody thought they needed an engineer, Pete, to get in there and look at that stuff and offer that power to control that kind of stuff.
That had to be an American design because I've never seen a drop ceiling in the tropics. It's
Me either.
concrete, cement all the way up. And part of the reason why is so you can get all the spider webs out of there and everything. Why would you have a drop ceiling, in a place that's totally infested, and mold?
Believe me,
It had
that
to be
question was batted around.
it had to be a U.S. design. And you go over there to these countries and you see the the colonial style architecture. It's that way for a reason. And
what would that be, Pete?
well, you have really high ceilings. That way the hot air goes up there and it stays cool down here.
Right.
That's one
we
of
have
the
the same thing in Florida.
Yeah.
We have the
Yeah,
same
same kind of environment. Very humid, very hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were always wide verandas covered, and that cools off the place also. And usually flat roofs, so you can sleep up there during the cool season or the hot season or any season, Yeah.
Keep away from the bugs as well. So how much work did you do in recovery as a recovery specialist?
Okay, that was with USAID, and I was hired because of my experience as a SEER instructor.
Right.
I worked at SEER active duty, and then for the first year after I retired. And they had a small 1 week long survival course. It barely touched upon any kind of resistance.
So you were in going around the world, going
Right.
mostly to embassies with USAID.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, USAID had this little program, personnel recovery, and we'd go around the world. We'd give this course, 4 days of classroom, 1 day of field work. It was heavy on signaling. We taught the priorities, and the priorities, of course, begin with shelter, water, and food in that order, because shelter, the environment can take you down in a couple of hours. Water, because you go without water for 2 or 3 days and you're done. Food, you can last 2 or 3 weeks without food. You'll be eating your belt and your boots by that time, but you can do that, right? All right. So shelter is everything from, overhead shelter from the rain and the elements to heavy gear if necessary, how to build shelters, everything from throwing up a tarp. These are, office dwellers. To them, knots and lashings and things, that's like outer space technology. All right. Signaling was a big one. Electronic signaling, non-electronic signaling. We had all kinds of James Bondian gadgets and gizmos, beacons, things like that. But we also taught them things like signal fires, flares, ground-to-air signals with panels, how to make them more visible by making them three-dimensional, how to improvise them using bed sheets, and that sort of thing. Anything we taught, we would try to teach. Now, this is how you can make it if you got nothing. This is how you can improvise. Medicine, we taught trauma medicine. And we'd always try to throw in there, well, if you don't have this device here, this is how you make a tourniquet, using a belt, using cloth, ripped up shirt, what have you. What are the dimensions? If you don't have this, this is what you can use. Right on down to, once you've treated the initial thing, now you're going to have to worry about sanitation. And if you got nothing else, how to use salt as a medicine, how to use hot water as a medicine, the kind of medicine that prisoners of war use, right? We teach that. We would teach improvised tools and improvised weapons. A weapon is that thing that can take down small game. We weren't encouraging people to, engage in combat activities. I'd always say that's a personal decision if your situation requires it.
At least not on camera.
Well, we would talk about kidnap awareness, kidnap prevention, kidnap awareness, the whole kidnap experience, how to defeat restraints, how to get out of the back of the boot of a car if you're in there, that sort of thing. And navigation. That was a big part of it too. because that's, for us as military guys, it's a common skill.
Yeah.
But for diplomats, office dwellers, that sort of thing, it's it's space math. And so we would go ahead and teach them map reading, how to plot on a map, how to navigate electronically using a compass, using a GPS, 3 different ways, and then using the sun and the stars.
Yeah.
And it actually works. And you can actually teach a lot of basics.
That's like a lot of phase 1.
Yeah. And then, well, what happened? Well, phase 1, it takes 40 hours of classroom to teach the map reading and land navigation manual. We had 4 hours.
Right.
So you really compress it down. But the thing that's interesting about that work is every single place we went, during or shortly after, an incident would happen and people were using what we taught. And
did you get any feedback from that?
Oh, yeah. The most amazing one was in Sri Lanka. They had to go with the UN out on a boat across the sea to some island to see something, right? Some project or what have you. And halfway across the ocean, the boat, whatever this craft was, it conks out. So now they're floating around, right? Okay, well, they end up on, just like Gilligan's Isle, a deserted island, right? And the UN people were like, no, what do we do? And the USAID people were like, let's put up a shelter. Let's make signaling. Let's collect some of this rainwater. Hey, so those coconuts over there, we'll start, busting them open. And they had it going. And they got themselves out of there in 12 hours.
Wow.
Stuff like that happened all the time. It was amazing.
I guess, and very self-rewarding, I suspect as well, to know that you saved some folks doing that.
Well, it really was. The next time somebody comes up to me and says, Pete, that thing you taught me saved my life, that won't be the first.
Right. And now you're putting that stuff in books.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Survival mindset.
Yeah, the survival mindset. I've seen, I haven't read it. I've seen copies of it. Yeah, there you go. Now, tell me about that.
Okay. What happened was it was 2020. Things were going gangbusters for me. I had 3 government contracts. I was making bank. I made 3 times my normal annual income in 2020. 2021, we got a new administration in place. They all dried up. So I wasn't working for 6 months. Well, I'm not going to sit around and twiddle my thumbs. I thought, I'll write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. And I'll write a book that's got everything in it that I know. And so I started writing what became Survival Mindset. I started out with Man in the Primitive State. And then I led towards the principles and the priorities that I explained before. And then those became the subsequent chapters, all the techniques. But Man in the Primitive State is like this. Think of us in the hunter-gatherer state. You're living in groups of about 30 or 40, roughly the size of an infantry platoon. And the reason why is if you have fewer than that, you can't hunt and gather enough stuff to survive. And if you have more than that, you'll deplete your resources. You can't hunt and you'll overhunt and gather. So it's roughly 30 to 40, half male, half female, half juvenile, half adult. Adult is about the age of 12 onwards. You die of old age between 36 to 45. That's man in the natural state. About once or twice a year, all the tribes come together and they have a big, what they call a corroboree in Australia, which is a powwow. And, then they cross-pollinate and then they go back. So think about this all your life. You're amongst the same 30 or 40 people. You see them every day. Now, think of our modern state. In an average city street, you're walking up and down the street, you have no idea who these people are. There's thousands of people all around you, and you don't know who they are. You've never seen them before, and you'll never see them again. I can go up the street. I live out in the country, but even if I go to the little village up at the end of the road, 20 minutes up the road to the shopping center, I won't see the same person twice. It's very unusual. Now, here's the thing. We're essentially surrounded by a sea of strangers, but we're still hardwired as the same people who were hunter-gatherers, because the anthropologists and the biologists estimate that it takes about 36,000 years for an observable evolutionary trait to manifest itself. And we've only been away from the hunter-gatherer state for about 12,000 years. That was the agricultural revolution. So in other words, we are still hardwired as hunter-gatherers.
So being in a clique is natural.
A tribe. Yeah, exactly. A clan. We have a tribe.
Right.
We're the Special Forces tribe of the U.S. warrior class, which is a very powerful class and a very powerful tribe, but it's probably the most misunderstood part of our society. But look at how people are lost in our society. They seek identity. That's a big problem in our society.
There's a lot of confused people today, for sure.
Yeah. Now, you can only get so much identity out of being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, or in my case, an Oakland Raiders fan, particularly because the Oakland Raiders are no longer the Oakland Raiders.
Because now they're in Vegas.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, people seek an identity, and you see it with the young people. They're trying to be part of something, but they're lost. And so I urge people in the introduction to my book, look at the world as a hunter, look through the hunter's eyes. Don't be the hunted, be the hunter, but also be aware that you're seeking a tribe, that you need a tribe, you need a clan. You must. No man is an island. And so that's as much a message of survival mindset as all the survival techniques and, emergency preparation techniques.
What about 1,000 Drops of Rain? You said that's a fiction.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. That one, it's fiction. It's a collection of short stories that's all, it's got a common theme. I was on an oil rig off the coast of Africa and had a lot to do. I should say I didn't have a lot to do. I had nothing to do and all day to do it. And I had a workstation up on the bridge. And so I thought, well, this is fantastic. I've got time on my hands. I'll write that great book that I've always wanted to write. And so what I did was I started writing about different anecdotes that all start with something that happened to myself or somebody that I know. And then I kind of made it, the anecdotes would become like science fiction or fantasy. And it all revolves around a guy. I was thinking, where would I really like to be in this world? And I created an environment down in southern Thailand, traditional Thai-style hotel, a little bit unorthodox, built up and down a jungled cliff overlooking the Andaman Sea. And the upper deck of it has got a colonial-style bar. And people come. They come from all over the world. And the main protagonist, I never really specify what it is, but it's a person like you or me. He's got a background, a bit of an adventurer. And these are all people from his past. And, then I just go into their different exotic stories. And it's very surrealistic. So
sounds like a good read.
That was a decompression thing. And then my third book is a proper action adventure novel. And it's basically based on a lot of true anecdotes. I couldn't tell truth, so I changed the names and places, to protect the guilty.
We don't want any cold crimes being solved with this, Pete.
I don't
read
think
this book and a cold crime being solved. So so it was an anecdote. You said it was a fiction. You had it was on personal experience.
Personal experiences and experiences that happen to people that I know. And I'll give you an example. In 2013, I was just starting out. Was it 2013? Oh, 2009. Sorry, I was starting out my career as a consultant to the nuclear security agent, the nuclear security industry, nuclear power industry, as a security consultant. And it takes about 2 or 3 weeks to in process, and you have to get a nuclear clearance, right?
Right.
Which is different from a DoD or a DOS clearance. And so um, I would fly up to Philadelphia, and I'd work for 3 or 4 days, and then I'd come down and stay down in Southern Pines for about 3 or 4 days. That's, just adjacent to Fort Bragg. And I'd leave my car in long-term parking at Raleigh-Durham, get in my car, drive down Highway 1, just straight down to Southern Pines. And one afternoon, this was in late August, early September 2009, and you can look this up on the internet. Um, Halfway down on Highway 1 was this old no-name gas station like you find in the South, like, Andy and Opie. And it was a beat-up old place with grass growing up through the cracks in the pavement. Had that rubber thing you drive over, goes ding, right?
Right.
The pumps, they weren't the kind that had the rolling numbers, but it was that 1970s kind of digital 8, 3, 4, those weird orangey
Right.
kind of the original type of digital stuff. Um, and I filled up, and then I went in to pay, and I was dying of thirst, and I was starving to death. So I got some Gatorade, and I got some beef jerky, and I'm going up to the counter, and I'm looking at the guy behind the counter, and he looks like he just got off the boat from the third world. He looks kind of like an Arab or a Pakistani or an Afghan. And I was just about to blurt out, Sabal here, Kif Halak, talking to him in, the Durka Durka language. And another one comes walking out behind the counter. And then there's another one. And now there's 4 of these guys, 5. And back of my head was saying, don't say a fucking word. Just pay your money and walk. Don't say a word. That voice in my head was screaming. It was like the one
alarm
time I
system.
really listened to it. Okay. So I pay my money. I get out of there, whoosh, down the highway. The next morning, my wife and I are sitting on the sofa, drinking coffee, looking at Fox News. Blam! Terror plot. These 5 guys and their one white handler been busted driving in a vehicle towards Camp Lejeune with about 500 pounds of explosives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And you
And
can look
close
that up.
encounter of the third kind, huh?
Yep. You can look that up on the internet. It's there. And I'm like, whoa. And then it's like, when is a terrorist organization the most dangerous? Well, that's right before they're going operational, because at that
Yeah.
time they're committed. And if
Through
they
the
had
moon.
perceived that I was some sort of security threat, because here's this white
You
guy
had to
showing
look,
up.
and you had to look. I mean,
Yeah. I
it's
got the
hard to
look, and I'm
disguise that.
speaking the lingo. They're going, what the hell is this? I'd be still lying in a shallow grave out behind the no-name gas station.
Right. Right.
I know.
Listen,
So I put
listen
that
to
in my
that.
book.
You listened to that alarm system, that internal alarm system, and took off. Good
I put
move on
that in
that.
my book, but I changed one of the characters, their handler. We had this Thai officer used to show up in Thailand at all our training events and everything. He was some sort of schmooze artist, right? Yeah. And he'd always pop up out of thin air, right? And one time, a friend of mine are in Bangkok, and we're in the Superstar Bar, which is a notorious bar in Patpong, um, owned by an adventurer. One of the cats that was in the Soldier of Fortune magazine lineup. He had a picture of him with beret, handlebar mustache, and all these foreign wings on his jungle fatigues, like about 7 of them. Right? His photos up on the wall, and look, there's Cat up there with him, and like, oh man, that guy gets everywhere. So I used his character as the handler of the terrorists. And
Oh, very cool.
yeah, because
I
it
was talking
fits.
with another author today and last night, and they were telling me some secrets about their how they get their characters as well. And it's kind of similar to what you're explaining right now. It's probably a really good read that you have there, Drowning Creek.
Yes.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
You know one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on here was about Info-Blurbs and this thing that you're starting. And I believe, and I believe that you started that because to support another organization that Mike Dinesman's involved in. And correct me if I'm wrong there.
That's quite right.
That's quite right. And it's about collecting open source information to try to develop a picture prior to somebody going operational somewhere. And I believe at the time it was with Afghanistan on getting people out.
It was after Afghanistan. It was the summer of 24.
Okay.
And but it's the same people that were doing Operation Pineapple, which were getting people out of Afghanistan that the United States had left behind. And several of them were U.S. citizens. And but in any case, in the summer of 24, Mike reaches out to me. We're going to go into XYZ. And would you like to come along? I said, man, I've got this other thing going and I can't get away from it. But I know I have contacts over there and I can get you granular information by neighborhood. And so I was sending out just like through Telegram or Signal, all this information in packets, in bundles, and it became kind of overwhelming. So I thought, well, maybe I'll do a web-based thing. And I started, and it wasn't working on the GoDaddy thing. And then I went over to Substack, and that got complicated. So I went to the same place where Elon Musk and Donald Trump get their news, which is Twitter, nowadays called X, and Facebook, and that seems to work the best. And what I do, there is so much information out there nowadays. This is the information era. And right. I mean, there's just information all over the place. You grab it and you put it together, and it's called open source information, OSINT. Info-Blurbs, because these were little blurbs of information that I was blasting out. And I think right now my graphic is like reverse on your screen. But if anybody can do that James Bond thing and read in reverse, and you figure out, that's the handle there on Twitter, on X. And and so my goal, my objective is to be a proper news and information service. I suppose in the old days it would have been like a newspaper. Nowadays it's so much easier to start one. It's proven incredibly difficult to get traction. I'm almost at 7,000 followers. I would have thought that I'd be, I'm doubling about every 3 months. But that's not fast enough for me. But in any case,
you were talking about all the information coming in off of Twitter and other social media sources. I've seen information coming out of Iran. Of course, they shut a lot of that down. Out of Afghanistan, when we were pulling out of there some of the chaos that was happening at the time there. I think from a user's point of view, or from even a distributor, I guess the toughest part would be verification, right?
Well, I was just thinking that because I've noticed something recently. I always try to verify or confirm. And I've gotten my fingers burnt a couple of times, and I've had to do a retraction just twice in 2.5 years. Is it no, in 1.5 years. But I'm finding now there's a new tactic going on. Somebody will take half of a news story and then add on fake stuff, and then they plant it on social media. It gains traction, and then it sort of gains its own sort of false validity. And so we're living in an era of information, but also a very chaotic era of lies, misinformation, deception.
And with the advent of AI, it's kind of hard. It's kind of easy to create false information and disseminate it, then have to like figure out a way to take that back.
You really need to sift through the tea leaves. It really is something. I believe it was Orwell said that in times of ultimate deception, the truth is the how does that quote go? The truth becomes a commodity unto itself, and this is where we're at. We live in revolutionary times, whether people realize it or not. At danger of becoming political, I just have to say we are in the middle of extremely revolutionary times. We've seen how great change can just whiplash back and forth politically, socially. Who would have thought that 20 years after 9/11, we'd have a large movement, demonstration movement, college campuses elsewhere, demonstrating on behalf of an Islamic terrorist unit, Hamas,
In the
and
same city, the colleges.
yeah, who would have ever imagined that?
Not
That's
I.
where we're at. That's how crazy things are getting.
Right. The information out there. I mean, and I think a lot of it's being massaged. And I think that, like, for instance, you had those two guys out of Pennsylvania
Yeah,
who drove up to New York to toss, I guess they were like a modified hand grenade, an
yeah,
IED of some kind. And their attorney gets on TV afterwards and says they never knew each other. They're not associated, but they came from the same state. They had the same device. So the
exact same
information,
device.
right, and the same accelerator that's in there, but they didn't know each other.
TATP, uh, tritoluene acetylene peroxide, a very powerful and effective explosive. ISIS gives it the nickname, the mother of Satan. Now, there's some confusion because it's described technically that it might be initiated by shock, but they had fuses in there. But I'll tell
Right.
you one thing, when you're doing your improvised explosives, as you know, I'm a Special Forces engineer. Okay. I was going through all my notes and all my black books, and I couldn't find that stuff. But what I do know is these improvised chemical mixtures, they are sensitive to temperature and pressure, and it was a cold day up there. That might have saved lives right there. For whatever reason, they had not rehearsed their device, or they'd rehearsed it under different conditions, and it didn't work, thank God, because if those things had gone
It would have
off,
been cops for
they
sure.
would have messed up a lot of people,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in
But
densely packed.
But back to that information, you got a lawyer representing them saying they
Yeah,
didn't know each other. However, the chances of coincidence with that is too great to not be true. To be true, I mean, they had to have known, or as you and I discussed recently, were they separate cells that were activated by
and come together,
program.
brought together by their control cell. That's a possibility, um, and it's not unprobable.
No,
Okay.
it's
Um,
actually doable.
Here's the thing. It's suggested that they showed up in New York, and that counter demonstration, which they became part of, was not planned. The demonstration in front of the mayor's mansion,
Or,
Gracie
or was
Mansion,
it?
the demonstration was um, we're against the Islamification of New York City.
Right.
Okay, all right, and then this group that shows up was theoretically spontaneous, and then these two guys were there. So was it planned and they went there intentionally, or were they going elsewhere and then, hey, look, we got a target opportunity here?
Or did somebody feed them information that was listening to them
Yeah,
for them to come? It gets that deep. It can go that
yeah.
deep and that dark.
And it's a couple hours journey from where they were at, Philadelphia, to New York, at least 2 hours. And
Right.
they went to that place and they both had the same explosive device. They traveled with explosive devices in their backpack with the intent to do harm. That devices which had to be manufactured, handmade. There wasn't any kind of ordnance, and it wasn't
And
anything you can buy in a gun store.
Right. And another real quick misinformation that could be misinformation is the strike on that Iranian girls' school.
Yeah.
They came out with it was a cruise missile. We said that we were going to investigate it. There has been no conclusions, but there's been other information that has been released that shows that the wings on that device, that missile going into that school, was at a different location than our cruise missiles.
That's quite right. I posted that on Info-Blurbs. And I attributed it to the guy who did the analysis, and he points out that the wings on the Tomahawk are towards the end of the missile body. The wings on this were mid-mounted, which are identical to the Iranian version. The Tomahawk cruise missile flies low to avoid radar. Okay, and flying low, it would have to go up to come down at that angle.
Yeah.
He points out Tomahawk cruise missiles don't do that.
Yeah.
They don't fly, infiltrate low.
They don't nosedive
and then go up. They don't do that. Why? If they were going to hit something, they'd be coming in at their angle that they normally come in at.
Their attack angle.
Right. Here, let me grab my little cruise missile here. Okay. They come in like this. They don't come in like that. They never do that, because to do that, they'd have to go up, break into the plane of radar. Okay. What he's suggesting is it's an Iranian thing that launched and then went haywire and landed there, or they targeted it intentionally. Now, it might be what is being claimed. It might be U.S. or Israeli. In which case, I would say there's no possible way they deliberately targeted a school.
Not at all.
No, that we do not do that. Absolutely no possibility. Unless we happen to know there's a weapon system in there. It could have been mistakenly targeted because that school was located adjacent to this Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps facility. That might be, but this is what we do know. The Iranian stuff has been jammed. It's not working. It's launching, not going anywhere. Their stuff's all going, haywire everywhere. Number one. Number two, they are at this time deliberately targeting schools in Israel with cluster munitions. They're doing that kind of thing. Ballistic missiles coming in, doesn't even matter if you intercept it and blow it up, all the cluster munitions. And those things are forbidden under international law. They essentially just scatter landmines and bomblets all over the place. And that's what they're doing. That's what the Iranians are doing deliberately. That's their modus operandi.
I think talking about this right now, some of the stuff that you're putting out, I think it's a good reason for people to go to Info-Blurbs and check out some of that information.
Absolutely.
And try to find the truth, try to locate that truth. Pete, I appreciate you coming on the show. Three's a charm, brother. We tried it twice before. We finally got it.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. It's been enlightening. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Yes.